How do you cope with being treated like you are crazy for following COVID safety guidelines, when others around you aren't doing the same? I work at a hospital, and go to COVID floors on a regular basis. It is more for your benefit than mine. It is true and unsurprisingly shuts up even the most ignorant of people. I usually go with I'm a paramedic and I work with COVID patients, but I can cough, take it off if you'd feel more comfortable. They usually STF you and back away. The thing I don't understand is that a mask is mostly to keep others safe from you. It is hardly going to do anything to stop other people's funk from getting to you at all. It is a simple act you can do to help everyone else. It is sort of silly, in my opinion, for people to make fun of others that keep their own best interest in mind. I don't think I'll ever understand that mindset. Other people wearing a mask directly benefits you. Why squander that? I do this. Yesterday a woman was wearing her shitty bead face mask and stood right behind me at Whole Foods. I told her to please back off, told her my work life, and she still wouldn't budge. I then told her to fuck off in a very low but angry tone. It's my first fuck off I've said to anyone in at least 10 years. I'm a COVID ICU nurse. I find it funny when people say something like this. Then when I inform them of where I work, I suddenly have at least 6 feet all around me and people are staring at me in shock or horror. But, you do what you can to keep yourself and your family safe. Don't worry about the others. If they don't pay your bills or snuggle up to you at night, why does their opinion matter anyway? Very true. I hope you're being treated well at work. Edit. Wow awards. Thank you kind strangers. I work in healthcare too, Nook Med Tech. Nothing like an ICU nurse. You guys are badasses in a good way, but I've still been wearing a N95 mask with face shield for 9 hours a day since February, while trying to make sure staff and patients mask up and stay 6 feet apart too, and vigilantly wipe everything down with purple wipes. My parents live in MI and traveled to TN, to visit family against my recommendation. So I'm just home by myself, and will FaceTime them. It's tough for sure. But, we all choose to live in a society, and this is what a society is supposed to do. When a catastrophic event occurs, we are supposed to do what is best to save the society. It's a sacrifice for the greater good. But, we are an Amazon nation who wants it, and wants it now. We live our whole lives as the individual, we worry about our school grades, our college acceptance, our job opportunity, our immediate family. And, never concerning ourselves with what is best for us as a whole. This a world filled with winners and losers in America. So if you're like me, doing your part for what we perceive to be the greater good for all of us, then a sincere thank you to you. Happy Isolated Turkey Day, and Merry Isolates Christmas to you. The end is in sight. The vaccine is almost here. You get the vaccine first. You deserve it. Continue this thread. More replies. If anyone ever said anything to me, I would probably just laugh at them. My mask even says the immune disease I have on it, just for that one purpose. To keep people from giving me shit, saying that, I mostly stay home, I do no contact shopping, and doctor's appointments. I'll not let anyone make me feel badly for protecting myself or my family. We just lost my aunt today to COVID complications, so I would probably ask if they have lost anyone to COVID, and if they said no, I'd tell them to shove their mocking up there. My response is always, you obviously don't know anyone who has died from COVID. I'm so sorry for your loss. TM very sorry about your aunt. Noah replies. I live in rural Indiana and hardly anyone wears a mask or distances. I go about life the same way I always do, honestly, stay in as much as possible, and when I'm out I pretend they don't exist. When I do get snide comments I just ignore them and carry on with my day. Do you get snide comments in USA if you wear a mask? A friend of mine kept saying it was a hoax, overblown, no worse than the flu, etc. He was hospitalized for a week and been out for almost a month now and still can't breathe right. Ask him if it is harder to breathe now or was it harder through the mask. I'm the first to admit I was very dismissive of it at first. My boss stocked up on PPE, we had policies and procedures in place for when it reached us, and I just dismissed it as an overreaction. Then it reached the UK. Then it reached my town. Then I saw the numbers in the local mortuaries going up, and suddenly all the PPE we wore to do removals didn't seem so silly anymore. Has he made any comments? Like apologies about saying it's a hoax? This is what I fear will happen to my dear friends. They 100% brought it on themselves, but then you don't want to be the asshole doing the I told you so when they are on their deathbed. Or they luck out and only have mild symptoms, which just emboldens their resolve. Tobe careless. Continue this thread. Noah replies. I've done Thanksgiving for years. This year, it's my husband, me and my elderly mother minus the 8 to 10 more we usually have. Somehow, I'm the overreacting asshole for keeping my mother safe. Hoping it will make them appreciate once we can go back to me cooking like a crazy person, but I'm not holding my breath. My mom has been apologizing profusely because she is too scared to spend my son's first Thanksgiving with him. I don't know how many more ways I can tell her she shouldn't be sorry for wanting to keep him safe. At least by being safe you'll have the ability to hold your breath. You are doing the correct thing. I just had a Zoom call with my grandma who told me she is going to die today. She has had COVID for over 2 weeks and has had leukemia for years. My mother also has COVID and is isolated with her, trying to keep her alive but has no energy to get her out of bed. You don't want to be on a Zoom call and hear you mom and grandma crying together thinking they are going to die. Trust me. I embraced a long time ago that everyone else thinks I make no sense. When everyone else has no mask, and questions your sanity for why you're wearing one. That's when you show up with a full PAPR, also, because if they're not being safe, they're a much bigger threat to you, than you are to them. So the selfish filtration model is justified. Exactly, recently I was traveling in a bus and a man sitting beside me wasn't wearing a mask. And when I told him to wear it he just points toward other people in the bus who aren't wearing a mask. I just told him I ain't gonna tell everyone, you are sitting beside me so I am telling you to wear it. He then puts on mask. Guess what, a man in my next to left seat also puts it on. Edit, many people are doubting this happened and I don't know, go ahead. I don't want to prove this to everyone. Why telling people to wear a mask is being doubtable? Good for you. I'm still working on embracing the fact that everyone in my family just thinks I'm a huge bitch who invented COVID solely to inconvenience them. Face with tears of joy. Keep on doing it. If anyone asks, just respond with, listen, I don't tell you how to protect you and your family, don't start telling me how to protect mine. Most of the COVIDios I run into are against it because they don't like being told how to live their lives, so use that mindset against them. I like this one. I use ultimatum approach. I say to them there are two choices, either do it, or don't. Then explain the two choices. What if you are right? I just look silly and that's it. But what if I'm right? You could catch it and spread it to someone who could die from it. So which one is better, the potential of looking silly, or the potential of being responsible for someone's death? Most end the conversation and walk away because they know they aren't fans of being called potential murderers. Using their mentality against them is the trick. You gotta outstupid them. Anti-mask mindset is rhetoric created by the liberal media disguised as conservative freedom protection designed to allow COVID to spread through the conservative population more freely when 5G towers are installed. Make it a bigger conspiracy to think about. I walked out of work. As the HR manager I had no choice. I was just so frustrated that my boss wasn't taking it seriously. This happened in April when South Africa went into lockdown. He wouldn't provide masks, gloves, barriers etc. for the factory. Then insisted all the office workers stay. So I walked out. I carried on working from home and completed all my tasks. Got disciplinary action but he couldn't fire me. Months later things have finally changed. But I've found another job. If that's how he treats staff's lives, he'll do it again. Tomorrow is my last day. So, protect yourself and your family first. And ignore the idiots. This pandemic is real. Deleted. Yeah, me too. I'm in Oklahoma, US and I hope bosses all over the world had some of us who won't tolerate their bullshit. In public I wear big over-ear headphones. At work when people say insane conspiracy shit I laugh at them. It's the only response I've found that shuts them up. I tried to explain and discuss the facts but once I realized that was never going to work I just started laughing at them. And I mean at them. You gotta out-crazy them by coming up with a bigger conspiracy. Like if someone says the earth is flat, snort condescendingly, you believe the earth exists? I just happily agree. Yup, I'm paranoid. Yup, we are all crazy. No, we still won't get together with you, because I'm so paranoid and crazy. And yes, I still wear a mask every time I go outside, because I'm so paranoid and crazy. The top priority in a pandemic is to survive it without getting sick. Period, full stop, end of story. Let everyone else think what they think. Just do what you need to do to keep yourself safe. My dad was tested positive for COVID and got admitted in the hospital, but my mom still doesn't believe in COVID, mind you, she is well educated and privileged enough to not do that. Anyway, after 2 weeks, dad's doing much better now. I always keep a picture of my mom in my wallet. Whenever I face difficulties in life, I take out my wallet and stare at her picture. And lately, it comforts me knowing that if my dad can survive COVID, and I can survive being a daughter of a staunch conspiracy theorist, I can survive almost anything. I choose to be paranoid about salmonella, so I overcook my chicken slightly. And wash my cutting board and hands after handling meat or eggs. I choose to be paranoid about becoming paralyzed, so I wear a seatbelt. I choose to be paranoid about brushing my teeth with fecal matter, so I close the toilet seat and put my brush behind a cabinet. I choose to be paranoid about frostbite, so I wear gloves in the winter. I choose to be paranoid about thugs, so I stay alert of my surroundings. I choose to be paranoid about STDs, so I wear a condom. I choose to be paranoid about people's motives, so I stay skeptical. I choose to be paranoid about alligators, so I don't go splashing around in the swamp. I choose to be paranoid about Lyme disease, so I check myself for ticks after I've been somewhere even remotely grassy. I choose to be paranoid about the rope holding, so I double check the knot before I climb. I choose to be paranoid about getting a heart attack or diabetes, so I eat healthy and exercise. You could say that I'm afraid, and going through all these hoops prevents me of living my life. But I say, I go through these hoops so I can live my life to the fullest, unafraid or as long as possible, simply by protecting myself from ignorance and stupidity. Mostly quesadillas. You're on to something here. As good a time as any to post this tasty breakfast quesadilla that I made recently. Fried some onion and jalapeno in butter before scrambling a mixture of a handful of crushed corn tortilla chips soaked in an egg in it. Layered that into a quesadilla with those disc-shaped tater tots, some fresh cilantro and of course layers of cheese. I make quite a few quesadillas and this one was top tier. The hero we need. Is that a garbage bag of chimichangas? I've had a fair share of arguments and have been branded the crazy, overprotective new mom by my husband's family because I've taken this pandemic seriously as absolutely possible since the beginning. Yes, I'm especially adamant when it comes to my 5-month-old, but I'd be just as serious if I didn't have a baby around for this. I cope by keeping my foot firmly down and mostly ignoring the snide comments that come my way. I don't need to justify my actions and decisions, so if you can't comply with them, then don't bother me with your bitching. There's a few loved ones that are much more relaxed, but they've been respectful of my decisions. I'm glad I'm not the only one. I'm 7 months pregnant, and have already told my partner to prepare his parents that when January comes around, they will not be seeing their grandchild if they refuse to quarantine. I've put myself in uncomfortable positions since March because of them, and I'm sure they're going to be even more pissed when I don't show up to Thanksgiving today. I know they all just think I'm a bitch, and am overreacting. You sound like a great mom, not a crazy one. You're doing the right thing for your child, and sticking to your guns. I know it is not the same, but you have internet family who support and respect your decisions. Yup, same. My baby turned 1 this week. We pretty much quarantined after her birth, as our area had a terrible flu season. Just as we were about to start going out, COVID hit. My in-laws have told us we can't live in fear. I'd rather live in fear than not live, Carol. As a new mom with a 4-month-old, I feel your comment so much. We are doing the right thing and you are not alone. In my case, my in-laws are the reasonable ones, my family are the Trumpers. I have to worry about them constantly and they can't understand social distancing to save their life, or ours for that matter, so we won't see them. Are we the same person? My husband's mom and her family think I'm a psycho for wanting to protect my 5-month-old. Like my mill told us, if we show up to her house with a mask she will turn us away at the door, but then gets mad when we refuse to visit her or let her see her granddaughter. If they want to be unsafe, fine, but be unsafe away from me and the people that love. Or replies. I wear a hat in winter to keep my head warm. I treat a mask the same way. I don't care what other people think, and I have become so used to having a mask with me I feel uncomfortable without one. Honestly, I'm excited for the masks in winter. Now my face won't freeze, and it keeps me, and everyone else safe. Win-win. Yet, people have really stopped complaining about masks now that it is getting colder. I love how comfy and warm they are, combined with the fact that it is now socially acceptable. Kinda same, even while watching movies when people touch each other, go in crowded places, I get so uncomfortable. Like, to WTF are you thinking? Am I the only one that watches videos from years ago and wonders why people don't have on masks? Then realize COVID wasn't around my whole life, face with tears of joy. Just keep doing your thing and keep yourself safe. The others will have to find out the hard way if they get it. This should have never been politicized in the first place. It is really crazy. I went into a gas station yesterday and the owner kept making jokes about my mask and saying, "Oh, you aren't going to rob me, are you?" Then started talking about how masks don't work and it is somehow a Biden-related conspiracy. This should have never been politicized in the first place. A fucking man, and it still is because of people being so goddamn stubborn to admit they were wrong in the first place about a brand new thing. Wearing masks in vehicles, I have COVID. My boyfriend does not yet. I needed to go to the dock but was in no way able to drive. We masked up, he drove, I tried to breathe out the window and we sanitized his truck after. I have been sick for a week and a half. I work at home, on a computer, and have not been able to effectively work. It sucks. Today I feel slightly better, enough to type this, but it is a slow burn to a miserable state and I suspect a long way back to normal. Be safe and fuck the dumbass. I am spending T-Day alone for everyone's sake. It is hilarious who thought that there was some mastermind who decided, Mastermind 1, okay guys, get this, we release a virus and then we get this. We recommend people to wear a mask. Bwahahahaha. M2, UMM. Sir. But what if they don't want to wear a mask? M1, oh but they will. Because it is a recommendation. M2, oh okay. But then what about the virus? It won't spread if PPL wear a mask. M1, it doesn't matter. Because we recommended them wear a mask. Bwahahahaha. M2, how is that even important? They can just take the mask off if they want. M1, no they can't. Because it is a recommendation. That sounds stupid AF. Heard this from someone else just say, apparently I care about you more than you care about me. In my case, the only time I interact with anti-mask or COVID is a hoax people is when I'm working as a waitress, so I have no choice but to be polite with them. I already answered about how I handle those customers in another comment. Your quote is totally right, but unfortunately those people already believe that COVID is not a danger to them, so that statement will go right over their heads. If we're talking about someone who does understand the danger of COVID but still doesn't take precautions because they're lazy or selfish, then this might hit them differently. Sometime in October, it kinda dawned on me that we were at a spot that was way worse than in March, and I was locked down in March. So I've been locked down. No Halloween, no Thanksgiving, no Christmas. I deleted all my dating apps cause that was just depressing me. I am dying to socialize again. I am fairly introverted, but I am dying to socialize again. I plan on being social as soon as I feel safe doing it post-vaccine. However, I can't imagine being on a first date in the next few years and not talking about the pandemic. I don't think I'll be able to connect at all with someone who has pictures on their Instagram of a big 2020 Halloween party, or like, travel pictures from this year. I care about you more than you care about me. I fucking feel that. It is like driving a car, and the other drivers aren't being safe. You keep your distance, try to stay positive, and try to understand that everyone has different levels of risk tolerance, understanding of the rules, etc. And that the best you can do is keep yourself safe and not contribute to the problem. Getting upset, or wanting to personally intervene to police other people's behavior is perfectly understandable, but it probably won't help, it might even make things worse. So, practice defensive living. That's a really good analogy, thank you. Try to stay positive. Not sure about that part, but yet. Just fucking good life advice in general. I get upset, but you only get to pick so many battles in life. I work in a pharmacy and I'm pretty fascinated by COVID, so I'm constantly reading about the virus, treatment protocols, vaccines, etc. When I smell people trying to be shitty about the whole thing, I usually rattle off some of the more interesting things I've read lately, and they usually reply with some stupid conspiracy theory, and I just tell them I can't go down that rabbit hole with them. Also, while I have the platform, hey, you fucking idiots, the government is pouring billions into facial recognition, a mask is your best defense against COVID and restoring your privacy. Fucking idiots. Also, while I have the platform, hey, you fucking idiots, the government is pouring billions into facial recognition, a mask is your best defense against COVID and restoring your privacy. Fucking idiots, this is the funniest thing about the chip idiots. Why would the government bother to inject you with a chip that can only be read over a short distance, and would be easy to find and remove, when they can just point a camera at your face? Honestly, pushing it as a resistance to facial recognition software would probably get more traction with those kinds of folks. They're all terrified of the deep state already. I remember seeing a tweet that reads something like this, paraphrasing: even if the pandemic turns out not to be a big deal, and we really are all sheep, I'll be content knowing I was a sheep by caring for other people and wearing a mask. This stuck with me and makes me glad to follow guidelines. Yeah, exactly. And seriously, what's the sacrifice here? Wearing a piece of cloth on my face? I wear cloth all over my body every day and it has never bothered me. Seriously, all of the anti-mask nonsense reminds me of a toddler who's refusing to put on pants. I cope by not having to go to the ER because of COVID symptoms. Coping by not being on a ventilator, gang. I feel that. Today is Blackout Wednesday and I'm feeling super left out. I swear everyone I know is out having a good time at the bars, and any other year I'd be there with them. But I couldn't do it this year. I'll drink and play some video games, listen to music, etc. I'd rather see my family members live another day than get drunk at the bar. What's your, "'tis but a scratch," moment? I got hit by a car my freshman year of high school. I went flying, lost consciousness for a split second when I hit the ground, thank God for helmet. When I came to, people were all around me asking if I was okay, and what happened, etc. I was like, oh yeah, I'm good. I'm gonna just get back on my bike and go now. But didn't really move. Then people started asking me to call an ambulance and my mom, etc. I was like, why? I'm good. I even told my mom on the phone I was still gonna bike home. But as I was saying that, the people around me had started to move one of my legs and I watched as my foot proceeded to not move. I had broken both bones in my leg completely in half and part of ankle. Just pure adrenaline and shock. I also vividly remember thinking, oh, this is what it feels like to get hit by a car. Also, the leg wasn't setting right, probably from movement, and the doctor decided to put me on laughing gas as he tried to crack my bones back into place. Was in a stupor laughing as I felt my bones grind. Yeah, adrenaline is mad. The feeling of bones grinding in unnatural ways when resetting a bone is forever ingrained in my head. Broke the fuck out of my pinky in 7th grade and even numb, that shit was super uncomfortable to feel. I am a bartender in a nightclub. One night while working I was pouring a drink while I reached back with my other hand to open a fridge, and that's when I heard a pop and got a huge pain in my back/shoulder area. The pain was pretty bad, but I was sure it was a pulled muscle and there would not be much point in seeing a doctor other than getting meds. So I waited. Fought through the pain, which was so bad at times it was making it hard to breathe. That was a Friday. I called off Saturday and had Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off before I went back to work Wednesday, once I biked into work. In all I waited 9 days total before finally deciding to go to the ER. I had a collapsed lung, called a spontaneous pneumothorax. 20 minutes after getting to the ER I was put into emergency surgery. I was essentially breathing with only one lung. And any major impact to my chest would have collapsed the other and probably killed me. Happened to me when I was in school just 3 months ago. I suddenly started not being able to breathe, but I was like, I am sure it is nothing. When I got home I actually slept for 3 hours but woke up from the pain. Me and my family thought it was corona, so we went to a hospital. I was quite shocked to learn I had a collapsed lung. But the worst part wasn't the lung, it was the operation and the aftermath. Having a tube inside you for a week hurts like hell. Haven't slept for 5 days during my stay there. Woof. Did the chest tube hurt worse than the lung collapse? Removed. But did you get the girl? A couple weeks ago, I stepped on an anthill and got a bunch of ant bites on my ankles. 3 to 4 days later, the itching was unbearable. I wasn't sleeping, my legs were swollen, and no amount of Benadryl or antihistamine cream was helping the itching. I finally went to a clinic to get a shot or whatever, because I clearly having some sort of allergic reaction. It was a staph infection that had spread from my ankles up to my knees. I would have died if this 1920 instead of 2020. I was on antibiotics for 10 days, and now several weeks later, the dead skin from the infection is still flaking off. TLDR, scratched ant bites with unclean hands and gave myself a staph infection. Ignored it for several days because it was just some bug bites. Can you explain what a staph infection is? I don't want to Google it because I'd be given gross pictures. Dude, same thing happened to me, sort of. Adrenaline is gnarly that way. Someone hit my side doing 60 through a red light and I got T-boned off the road. My head hit the window so I was knocked out, but apparently the passengers in my car said that I woke up, pushed them out of car, and then pulled myself out of the car with a dislocated shoulder, walked about 10 feet away from the car and just passed out in the dirt. Rolled my car. Got out of the car bewildered and in shock, noticing a kink in my neck. As someone who constantly cracks my knuckles / neck, my instinct was just, I'm not hurt, thank God. Just need to crack my neck and I'll be fine. Before I finished processing that train of thought, I was held down in C-spine by the person behind me who had watched my crash. Luckily he was an off-duty firefighter. I had broken 3 vertebrae in my neck, I just couldn't tell it yet from the adrenaline and shock. Required full surgery to fuse together with bone from my hip and plates / screws. Had there not been someone behind me and had I proceeded with my "tis but a scratch" instincts, I'd be paralyzed or dead. Jesus, I'm so glad he acted so quickly to immobilize you. My little sister fell down about 15 steps at our grandma's house when she was a toddler. She got up, giggled and went to go eat some snacks. This other time, still a toddler, she was supposed to be napping. We were in the living room and heard a huge thud. We ran to the room thinking she'd fell out of the bed. I got hit by a car while riding my bicycle, flew through the air, bounced off his windshield, breaking his windshield, my helmet and 2 vertebrae. Then thrown to the ground where my kneecap shattered and bone was sticking out of the skin. And as I lay there in shock, unaware of how badly I was injured, I thought I might be able to get back on my bike and ride home. Shock is a Haluva drug edit, adrenaline asterisk, my bad. I did the exact same thing when someone hit me on my moped. Are you sure you didn't die then and now you're just carrying on as you'd expect things would go? Continue this thread. No replies. I broke my neck on a huge shorebreak wave and didn't want to leave the beach, so I continued swimming and playing volleyball until my friends noticed my neck was swelling up bigger than my head. Holy shit. Lucky you didn't paralyze yourself. That's terrifying. I broke my C5 and 6 playing rugby when I was 18. First question I asked the doc after they reset the vertebrae pre-surgery was when I could be back playing again. He was deadpan. Is it your sole means of income? Back in my baseball days, when I was pitching, I completely lost a pitch, and it beamed a guy in the jaw. He throws his bat down, glares at me with the glariest of glares ever glared, spits out blood, then calmly runs to first base as though nothing happened. It was terrifyingly badass. Still better than spitting out blood after getting to third base. I was mountain biking and fell off. I fell down part of the mountain and into a road where I almost got hit by a car. I got up quickly, thanked the driver for not killing me, and then got back on the bike. I knew the road would meet up with the trail I was on, so I could meet up with my group who hasn't seen me fall. When I got to them, one of them looked at me and was like, "What happened?" I got off the bike, walked over whilst we waited for the others to catch up, and just said I fell off. He then looked down at me and was like, "What the hell happened?" Fell off my bike and dislocated my shoulder, popped it back in and kept on going. Trapped a nerve, but it is okay 90% of the time now. Another time I fell in some glass, pulled out most of it from my hands and pulled out a piece 9 days after the wound had fully healed. I felt a weird pressure when I'd hold things, so I had a feel around and cut the glass out. I popped my shoulder back in after falling while skiing, and now I get gnarly knots in the muscle right underneath. Massages and stuff help, but I probably should have gone to the doctor. I separated my collarbone from my sternum and my shoulder in wrestling in high school. That shit wasn't right till I had surgery 5 years later, thanks, US healthcare. My shoulder would pop out almost weekly. Pop ER in and get on with it. I broke my arm at the skating rink, and skated for an hour before I even left. Then, after I left there, I went to a playground with my BF at the time and hung out. I didn't go to the hospital until the next day. Similar. Ice skating rink, fell and caught myself on my hands, got up and continued skating. The only way I knew how to stop was just going into the wall and catching myself. I spent a long time skating after I fell, until my mum shouted at me to come over. My arm was black from near the end of my pinky to about halfway down my forearm. Fractured my wrist. I broke my tailbone off just the tip ice skating when I was 10. I also had a little internal bleeding, but I thought I had started my menses, so didn't even worry about it. Thought I was pregnant when it didn't come again, and my mum finally took me to the doctor 4 or 5 weeks later, and lo and behold. Ruined tailbone. Ice skating is dangerous. Lucky you. When I was 10 I had a similar stomach pain situation that the docs thought was a swollen lymph node or potential appendix situation. Went to the hospital and the CT scan showed my appendix was missing. It ruptured in the car, lol. 10/10 would never do again. A few years ago, I was sick. Not fun, but it was only a bug. I'd be okay in a couple days maximum. I started to get an unusual pain in my abdomen as the day wore on, but to me it was just a side effect of all the throwing up I'd been doing. I spent the night in the spare room for 2 reasons. 1. Because I was so frickin' hot, and 2. In case I needed to get up, I didn't disturb my partner who would be getting up early for work. I broke my toe running up the stairs and I ran back down the stair thinking I just stubbed it until my toe turned purple. Did something similar 2 weeks ago, tried to close a drawer with my foot but just straight up kicked the corner of it, but kept walking the rest of the day, and only figured out it was really bad the next day when the toe was purple and I couldn't walk. Jesus Harold Christ. I'd, nobody give this guy a bunch of dragon eggs and ask him to climb on a funeral pyre. Noah replies. Got blackout drunk while camping and fell hands first onto the grate that had been over the fire for hours. My wife and friends were all freaking out thinking I definitely had 3rd-degree burns. I came out of my blackout in the bathroom with all of them trying to wash my hands in cold water. When all the soot came off, I was somehow completely unharmed. Since then I've been known as the unburned. The door definitely saved your hands, lol. Carbon is awful at transferring heat. Edit. Soot. Not door. Does your family have any affiliation with dragons by any chance? I'd, nobody give this guy a bunch of dragon eggs and ask him to climb on a funeral pyre. Had something similar happen, was being choked out by the kid in the desk behind me and was making lots of noise, kicking and flailing around. My teacher told me I better be quiet or I'll miss recess. She had some unreasonable vendetta against me. Mrs. B was AB. Her husband was my math teacher. I liked him though and he was always nice to me. Noah replies. Couple of years ago my mate broke my nose in class and the teacher told me to be quiet. A guy I went to school with had an epileptic fit in our re-lesson. The teacher stood yelling at him for disrupting the class for a good 3 minutes before she realized and decided to get help. Edit. Spelling. When my school was moving from clip-on ties to real ties I still didn't know how to do it and accidentally tightened it to the point where I was choking. Teacher told me to sit down but with the help of 2 others and a lot of patience I was free. Bought everyone's old clip-on ties, never wearing a real one after that. Reason I couldn't undo it myself is because the middle part at the top was so small and tight that we had to sacrifice a pen and my dignity to breathe again. Edit. Guys, no, I did not poke a hole in my neck. I can't believe I had to say that, LMAO. The pen went in the knot in the tie. What even? My first job was as a butcher and I came into work one day with a raging hangover. I sharpened the knives, they were crap ones that went blunt all the time, and immediately proceeded to cut my finger open. I thought nothing of it, went about my shift, and when I got home to put a proper dressing on it I found out it was as deep as the bone and I wouldn't get feeling back in the end of it for literally years. Fellow butcher here. I'm familiar with the OLE thought nothing of it method of first aid. Not me but my teacher. She said that one time when she was in college she was in a classroom and her foot was stuck on something but she just yanked back and was fine, but she was looking up the whole time. She got to her dorm and took off her shoe and it was soaked in blood and her foot was stabbed by a loose piece of metal. I shouldn't be reading these. These are nauseating. That reminds me of a story my mother told me. A sibling of my grandmother, she had 9 or 10, grabbed a boiling pot of milk from the stove and accidentally poured it all over himself. He was only a toddler and died from that. This must have happened around 1930 maybe. Continue this thread. Noah replies. When I was very young I pulled a tablecloth and managed to dump a freshly boiled pot of tea all over myself. I get rushed to hospital. My skin is red and bubbling. I should be in floods of tears. Instead, I proudly point to my ruined skin and proclaim to the paramedic I did that. Over 30 years later and I still have some scars, but I am definitely no longer that hardcore. Instead, I proudly point to my ruined skin and proclaim to the paramedic I did that. This made me laugh. Yesterday when I got home from work, my wife was telling me how she took our 2-year-old son to the playground. She told me all sorts of things he did. I asked him if he had fun at the park. He said I fell on head. When I was a small dumbass child, I had a habit of gripping door frames when walking through the door. I did not discriminate between the latch side or the hinge side. Door gets closed and my fingers get crushed in the hinge, to the point where there's a dark purple line across them and a tangible groove. My mom starts completely freaking out over the injury. but I, brave little dumbass I was, saw the distress she was in at what had happened. I put on my bravest face, my eyes welling up in tears from the pain, and said, "Don't worry mommy, it'll heal." I was right, it did, but still. Edit, good lord, my inbox. Thanks for the guilds guys, I'm glad you enjoyed my story. I know it must have hurt something awful, but that is too precious. I'm sure your mom appreciated you trying to make her feel better. That happened to my daughter when she was just crawling.
Like and subscribe for more Reddit content. Watch the next video at the top of your screen.